Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world. This is Gloria White, and I'm coming to you from Utah, USA. Today I want to talk to you about fire types and extinguishers. And the reason that I'm bringing this to your attention is the chaos that has been happening in our cities has been rumored that it will spread to the suburbs and possibly even rural areas, and that we need to be aware and ready. We need to prepare as communities, we need to prepare as neighborhoods, we need to prepare as families and individuals on what we can do, how we can react, what are fire safety rules that we should follow, what are ways that we can put out gasoline fires, and what types of extinguishers to use for different types of fires. And and there are different kinds of fires, and putting water on every fire is not the solution, as water on some fires it actually makes it much worse. So please hang in until I get to the gasoline, how to extinguish gasoline fires. Firstly, there is a thing called a fire tetrahedron, and this is simply what it requires for something to burn. You need oxygen, you need a heat source, maybe a wire, it may be an open flame, and you need something that will burn. When you have these three components, it creates a chemical chain reaction, or fire. And we're going to look at how to put fires out. Secondly, we're going to look at rules for fighting fires. Remember these 3 A's. Activate the building alarm system or notify the fire department by calling 911 or have someone else do this for you. And that is if you are in a safe place. Otherwise, escape first and then call. Assist any persons in immediate danger or those incapable on their own to exit the building without risk to yourself. Only after these two are completed should you attempt to extinguish the fire. Only fight a fire if the fire is small and contained. You are safe from toxic smoke. Gasoline fires create an awful lot of toxic smoke, black toxic smoke. You have a means of escape. You got a plan. You got a way to get out. Your instincts. Listen to your instincts. If they tell you it's okay, then fight the fire. Otherwise, get out. Very quickly, I'm going to go over the 5 different types of fires and how experts say you should put them out. Fires can be classified in 5 different ways depending on the agent that fuels them, what's burning. Using water on some fires, like Class B and Class C fires, can actually make them more dangerous. Gasoline is one of them, unless you have a lot of water to dump on it. If a fire can't be put out, leave the area as quickly as possible and alert everyone nearby. Contact emergency services as soon as you can safely do so. Gasoline fires have fumes. The fumes, just like when you're at a gas station, you don't use your cell phone because the magnetic frequency can actually spark a fire by igniting the fumes, just like you wouldn't light a match or you wouldn't smoke a cigarette. Same principle, same thing. When faced with a fire, knowing how to extinguish it can come in handy. That being said, always use your best judgment and proceed with caution, especially because when it comes to extinguishing a fire blaze, identifying the type of fire can be incredibly important. Here's how to put out the most common types of fires and which fire extinguishers to use for each. There are actually 5 main types of fires. Most of us probably don't think much about the distinction between different types of fires, but knowing the difference could be life-saving. Each type of fire involves different flammable materials and requires a special approach. In fact, trying to fight a blaze with the wrong method might make the situation worse. In most cases, knowing which type of fire extinguisher to use is crucial. Fortunately, using one can be pretty simple. The Fire Equipment Manufacturers Association suggests remembering the acronym PASS. This is a fire extinguisher, and there is, on every fire extinguisher, there should be a gauge, and this gauge right here should always point to the green. Can you see the green there in that fire extinguisher? There's a little arrow pointing right here is the green. If it's pointing somewhere else, that means the pressure in your fire extinguisher is too low to force the chemical agent inside your fire extinguisher out and towards the fire. This right here is the nozzle. This is what you'll want to point at the base of the fire. Not at the flames that are up high, but the ones that are down at the bottom where the source of the fire is coming from. This is the pin. You have to remove the pin in order to squeeze this handle to release the chemical within this fire extinguisher. You must pull this pin from the extinguisher. If you don't, your extinguisher will not work. So, if you have a fire extinguisher, get it out. Check it. Make sure that the arrow is pointing to the green that's showing you your fire extinguisher is fully charged, that the pressure is not too low to work. Familiarize yourself with where your pin is on your fire extinguisher and the handle. Some fire extinguishers actually have a rubber hose that come off the end of it that would be coming off the front of your fire extinguisher like this here nozzle is, but it would be a rubber hose that you would hold at the end of the rubber hose so that you can control where the chemical is spraying. So when you want to extinguish a fire, it's important to pull your pin, to aim, and to sweep slow from side to side at the base of the fire. So this is sweeping, going from side to side at the base of the fire. So if you remember PASS, you'll remember to pull the pin, aim, squeeze the handle, and sweep. So those are very important to know in using a fire extinguisher. Please educate everyone in your household who is large enough to handle a fire extinguisher on how they work and how to use it. You may not always be home when they need it. That being said, if you keep a fire extinguisher in your home or place of work, you want to check its gauge monthly and be sure it is in working condition. The Atlanta Fire Chief, Dennis L. Rubin, told Real Simple, you'll also want to check the extinguisher for damages and get it inspected if necessary. The worst time to find out your fire extinguisher's pressure is too low is when you need it most. Most importantly, you'll want to use the proper extinguisher when putting out a fire. Class A fires. They involve solid materials like wood, paper, plastic, or clothing. You may even start an intentional Class A fire, which would be like a campfire or striking a match. They're the easiest to extinguish. You can use water or a foam fire extinguisher on Class A fires. You can also use water to douse the fire, as it can remove the fire's heat supply. So here you see in this fire hydrant that one of the components is heat. Okay. B. Class B fires involve flammable liquids like oil, alcohol, or gasoline. As you can see here, this fire is looks pretty explosive. And if it wasn't dark, you'd see that the flames are pretty black, and they're putting off incredibly toxic materials. According to the U.S. Fire Administration, Class B fires involve ignitable liquids or gases like petroleum, grease, alcohol, paint, propane, or gasoline. But this classification typically does not include fires involving cooking oils or grease, meaning animal fat, like lard. According to First Strike, these types of fires might occur anywhere flammable liquids or gases are stored or used. So there are some people storing propane, and some people are storing gasoline for SHTF situation, and they may have a fire that breaks out, and you need to know what to do. Or you may have one come flying through your window. It's very important not to use a water extinguisher on a Class B fire. The steam of the water might spread the flaming material rather than extinguish it. What happens is the fire is burning, and then you have this gasoline. And if you dump a little water on it, it actually will create steam and carry the little particles of the gas up high into the air. So do not use water on a gasoline fire unless you can actually douse it, like with tons of water. Class B fires should be extinguished using foam, powder, or carbon dioxide extinguishers, because these chemicals, the foam, the powder, and the carbon dioxide, actually remove, if you look at the fire triangle again, the head tetrahedron, if we can remove the oxygen so it can't burn. And that's important. And that's what these types of extinguishers do. They smother the fire. Class C fires involve a source of electricity. Again, bad idea to use water, as electricity is conducted by water. You can cause yourself to get electrocuted. Dry your hands before you go try to turn your breaker box off, if it's safe to go there and do that. Otherwise, get out. Okay, Class E fires, referred to as Class E in Australia, involve electrical equipment. This type of fire might be started by old wiring and walls, frayed electrical cords, worn out breaker boxes, or faulty appliances. Electrical fires are very common in both homes and industrial settings. According to Strike First, the first thing you should try to do if an electrical fire starts is to disconnect the appliance or item from its power source, only if it is safe to do so. If possible, you should try to extinguish the flames using a carbon dioxide or dry powder extinguisher if and when the power source is disconnected. The fire can become a different class of fire, typically a Class A, meaning it's burning wood, or it's burning plastic, or it's burning a dish towel, something of that sort, that or the studs in your wall, the insulation, it can spread through the sheetrock and start burning your furniture, which would be a Class A fire as well. Do not put out an electrical fire with water or foam extinguishers, as both of those materials can conduct electricity and potentially make the situation more dangerous. Foam actually contains water, and that's why you do not want to use a foam extinguisher on electrical fires. Class D fires are rare, but can happen when a metal ignites. Who knew that metal could ignite? But it can. And here are some of the metals that can ignite: potassium, magnesium, aluminum, and sodium, as these can ignite when exposed to air or water. They typically happen in laboratories and industrial settings. Dry powder extinguishers work on metal fires by separating the fuel from oxygen and removing the heat element of the blaze. But foam or water extinguishers can potentially increase the intensity of the flames and cause dangerous explosions. And I'm sure that anyone that works in a laboratory or a refinery of that nature would know about that. Some fires might also be termed Class K or Class F if they involve cooking oils such as vegetable oil or animal fats. Now, this is probably the most typical fire that any of us in our home would run into. Leaving a pan on the stove unattended with hot oil or lard or something in it can, because of there's oxygen in the air, and then here's the heat source, and inside this pot is the fuel. So now if you want to put this kind of fire out, you want to smother the flame. Turn the burner off and try to smother the flame. Do not pick up and try to move a pot or skillet that is on fire. You could spill it in trying to hurry to try to do something to get the fire out. You can spill it, and you can spill it on yourself. You can cause it to run down the front of your stove and hit the flooring. And so any number of things bad can happen if you try to move this pan. It's best to take a lid and put on this fire. Or if you don't have a lid, a pot or pan that's larger than this pot and put on top. That would smother the flame. You can also use baking soda. Do not just throw it in there, because you will then splatter the grease, spreading the fire. Be very careful, and whatever you do, do not put water on it. Although they are sometimes lumped in with Class B fires, the U.S. Fire Administration considers blazes involving cooking oils to be in their own category because of the high flash point of cooking oils and fats. Class K fires often start when a pan is left unattended on the stove. If you'll want to turn the heat off on the cooking appliance and remove the fire from the heat source as soon as possible. Do not pick up that pan and try to move it, because you're going to be already excited and trying to figure out, oh my God, look at this fire, and you may spill it. So do not pick that up. Turn the fire off. Okay, that's the end of the heat source. Now, the fuel that's there burning and the oxygen is still there, and the flame is still there, but you just need to smother that fire. Just as you shouldn't use water to try and extinguish a Class B fire, Dousing a cooking oil fire with liquid is likely to create a dangerous splatter effect and spread the flames. And I will tell you that you can also create that steam that carries the oil up as far as 25 feet into the air. So in a room where you have an 8-foot ceiling, that fire isn't just going to go right to the ceiling and stop. It's going to spread out across the ceiling. It's going to run across the whole entire ceiling as far as it wants to. So do not put water in a cooking oil fire, okay? Instead, you should extinguish a Class K fire with a wet chemical extinguisher. And according to the New York City Fire Department, these are mandatory in many commercial kitchens and are a good investment if you do any amount of cooking at home. Not saying you're a bad cook, just saying be prepared. Here's what to do if you can't extinguish a fire. See, here is this extinguisher here, and it shows the pin, the handle that you have to pull, and this one has the hose that comes off. But right here is this gauge. And if you have a fire extinguisher and you bought it and you thought, we're good to go, we've got a fire extinguisher, we've got 3 fire extinguishers. If that needle isn't in the green zone, your fire extinguisher is absolutely worthless. So please get your extinguishers out and check. What does that gauge look like? There are companies that can do maintenance on your fire extinguisher. It's not something you have to throw away because the needle has moved outside of the green zone. It can be serviced. And if your fire extinguisher is in need of service, please take care of that immediately. If you have any doubt at all about your ability to quickly and safely extinguish a fire, you should immediately evacuate. According to the Department of Homeland Security, it can take just 30 seconds for a small flame to turn into a major blaze. In the event of a fire, the Red Cross recommended leaving the area or building as quickly as possible after yelling to alert anyone nearby. Fire, fire. Always use stairs rather than elevators. Stay low to the ground, as smoke will rise above you. And if you're low to the ground, there is oxygen there that you can breathe, that maybe you can get out by crawling along the floor. And use the back of your hand to touch to see if a door is hot. If that door is hot and you open it, it can explode. Don't open the door if you feel that it's hot or warm. Call 911 or your local emergency number as soon as possible, as soon as it is safe to do so. Don't just stand there in the stairwell going, oh, well, now the fire's back there in the hall and in my house, and I'll just stand here and call 911. Get out of the building. If your clothes catch on fire, the Red Cross suggests you drop to the ground and cover your face before rolling back and forth until the flames go out. Now, we've all seen the person in the video where they accidentally set their pants on fire and they go running and the other people are chasing them and then they finally get them. Well, if you have to tackle someone, tackle them. Get them to the ground. If you have a coat or a blanket that you can smother the fire with, do that. If you can throw sand on them, if you can throw dirt on them to put the fire out, that is what you need to do. Because the longer the fire burns their clothing, the more burns they're getting. And I will, after this video, maybe in this video, depending how long we're going, I can see by the time now that we will do a separate video on how to treat burns. Because emergency services may not always be available. Now, there are different types of fire extinguishers you can buy. I cannot and will not suggest any of these. because I have no idea which one does what. But if you go to buy one, you know, ask questions, maybe you could even call your fire department and ask them and say, what type of fire extinguisher am I looking for? Here's how big my home is. Here's what I think I may need it for. What is the best multi-use fire extinguisher I can get? And as you can see, the prices vary quite a bit. And you may wind up having, a really expensive one to do everything that you want it to do. But according to what we just read, one single fire extinguisher isn't going to take care of everything. So it would require multiple different kinds of fire extinguishers to take care of all the different fires that you may encounter. The one that I'm most concerned with is gasoline fire. So, here, how to put out a gasoline fire. Although the explosion of a vehicle or throwing a cigarette on gasoline are scenes with large Hollywood doses, it is better not play with fire when it concerns gasoline, because sometimes it can be more dangerous than dynamite. The main problem resides in its vapors, which are invisible, explosive, and flammable. This petroleum derivative is a flammable liquid that burns and continues to burn very easily, even at temperatures as low as negative 40 degrees Celsius. Gasoline can release enough vapors, forming a mixture that burns in the air. So, it's very dangerous. Its lower flammability limit, the LFL, is 1.4%, and its upper flammability limit is 7.6, which I don't know what that means. It says that it means that gasoline burns when it is in the air at levels between those percentages. That is, the presence of gasoline vapors in the air below 1.4% means the mixture is too poor to burn. On the other hand, if the air has a percentage higher than 7.6% of gasoline vapors, it will be a concentration too rich to burn. When gasoline burns, it generates a black smoke in the air, characteristic of fires with high thermal loads and low oxygen. Smoke from a gasoline fire has toxic components including benzene, xylene, heptane, toluene, hexane. It is aromatic and aliphatic hydrocarbons with harmful effects on health. So please consider this if one of those Mai Tai cocktails comes flying through your window, that the smoke is so toxic that and it can overcome you very quickly. Gasoline is also an organic compound that contains carbon. In case of incomplete combustion, a little combustion with a little oxygen, it produces carbon monoxide. Recall that this chemical, CO, is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gas that is not detected through the senses and can cause death. That's why we have CO, carbon monoxide detectors in our home, as well as carbon dioxide detectors, smoke detectors. Acting correctly in case of fire is essential. Let's see below how to react if we find a fire caused by gasoline. How to extinguish a gasoline fire. Okay, folks. Evacuate the area. As a first step, we will proceed to evacuate the place where the fire has occurred to remove all people who may be affected. Air the affected flame. If it is an interior, meaning in a house space, we will open all the doors and windows to favor the ventilation of the affected place. So whereas if something is burning in your house, say it's, you know, your sofa's on fire, and you have to get out of your house, you don't want to open your windows and doors because it just increases the oxygen to the fire, which can make it worse. But with gasoline, it's the vapors. So you want to open all the windows and doors to allow the ventilation of the affected place. Call the fire department. We will then notify the firefighting services from a telephone outside the affected space, because remember, your cell phone, even a light switch, the tiniest spark can ignite those fumes. So don't call from inside the house. Get far away from the house before you call on your cell phone. In case of minor fire, a fire blanket or dry powder. If the flames in gasoline are small in size, a fire blanket must be used to prevent the spread and soothe what has been caused so far. In case of major fire, like it's a lot of fire, like they threw a gallon container through your window, you're going to have a major problem. Powder, CO2, or foam extinguisher. Gasoline fires are part of the so-called Class B. They are fires where the fuel is the liquid. Class B fires are normally extinguished by removing oxygen, disrupting the combustion chain, or paralyzing the release of the combustible vapors. For large-scale fires caused by gasoline, there are two types of fire extinguishers suitable for drowning the flames in addition to foam, sprayed with foam. Let's see the option. There are dust extinguishers. They are extinguishing equipment that uses chemical powders, sodium or potassium bicarbonate, to extinguish the fire due to a suppression effect of the chemical reaction. C2 fire extinguishers. Extinguishers that use carbon dioxide manage to extinguish the fire by a suffocation effect. It does not produce chemical reactions because it is non-combustible gas. When using CO2, it is important to maintain a series of precautions, such as the safety distance of at least 2 meters from the fire. Foam is the mixture of foam, air, and water. This is why you don't want to use foam on an electrical fire. And it's in certain proportions. Foam is one of the best resources to extinguish a fire in liquid fuel tanks. In the extinction of a gas fire, the foam has multiple capacity. Okay. Exclude oxygen from flammable vapors. Separate the flames and retard the release of vapors from the fuel surface. Cool the fuel surface. Likewise, foam is effective in these cases because it suppresses harmful vapors while preventing vapors from finding a source of ignition, like a light switch, your cell phone, a match, a cigarette. A layer of foam on a fuel spill can also prevent a possible fire. What not to do if it burns gasoline. Even if panic strikes, we will avoid using mobile phone and electrical devices, including light. Remember that it is forbidden to use the mobile phone during refueling at gas stations. The main reason lies in the emission of gases, which are flammable and toxic. The mobile can generate sparks by its battery and electromagnetic waves, which can cause an explosion when contacting the gases of the service station, the vapors. A lot of the nozzles now have like that rubber thing that goes around, so when you put the nozzle in your gas tank, the rubber thing, it's helping prevent the escape of the vapors. That's not only harmful to breathe, but could also be ignited. That's why you don't want to slide in and out of your car, because the spark from static electricity is enough to ignite that vapor. Nor will we light matches, lighters, or cigarettes if we find a gasoline fire. Water is also an enemy when it comes to a fire whose fuel is liquid, since it can aggravate the situation. For example, by an explosion. Fire protection in refineries and oil sectors. Well, that's completely different than what we would experience in our homes. So we're not even going to look at that. But we have to be aware that gasoline fires are treated different than a wood fire or a paper fire or a fire, your sofa being on fire. And I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because it's so critical for being able to protect your home. Now, you don't have one of these fire extinguishers. Not everybody's going to be able to afford a powder, a CO2, or a foam extinguisher. If you have buckets set somewhere close in your living room there or by windows that you can put blankets in and just, douse them in there and maybe throw over the top of the fire, it may put it out. But unless you think you have a really good chance of snuffing out that fire, get out. Unless you feel like, I got this, and you're Superman, and you really can do this, or you're a professional firefighter, just get out of your house. Let the fire department come and deal with it. It's better to walk away with your life and the life of your family than it would be to stay in your house and have it burn down around you, or get trapped because of the way it's spreading, or become intoxicated from the toxins that a gasoline fire creates. So, get your neighbors together, create a neighborhood group, a community group, so that, you can help one another. You can alert one another that, hey, I just had to get out of my house. Somebody threw a fire bomb through my window, and it looks like they're heading your way. And, if everybody in the neighborhood is prepared and has means to protect the neighborhood and their families and their property, then you have a pretty good chance of running those rioters, looters, and fire starters away from where you are. I would be very careful if I have a firearm, because there are so many laws, and if you are not aware of the laws in your area, you could wind up in jail, even though you feel that what you are doing is the right thing to protect your life, liberty, and property. That's the other thing I want to encourage everyone who has firearms. Get familiar with your laws in your state of what is legal to do with your firearm. In California, if someone breaks in your house, you have to retreat one full room away from where they came into your house before you can shoot them. That's, one of the crazy things. So just be aware of what the laws are in your area should you decide you need to use um, something other than your fist to stop someone from harming your life, your property. Then just be careful, okay, folks, and just be aware that this chaos that is in the cities is being rumored that it's coming to our um, suburbs and our rural areas. And I just want everyone to be careful and be aware and go back and read this over a couple of times, listen to this video a couple of times until you get it in your head, all the different aspects of you know what you should be doing to fight a gasoline fire. It's not like your um, grease fire on the stove. It's not like if a log rolls out of your fireplace. It's not the same as if a wire starts burning in your wall. Um, Anytime that you see the fire is large, the smoke is thick and bad, get out. Get everyone out. Just get out with your life. And like I said, plan on exiting the back of your house because the bad guys are in the front. You will want to go out the back or the side. Um, and unless you're prepared to run over people with your car, you get in your car and you leave your garage, you better be prepared to run over people because we've seen it over and over and over how they block the traffic and then they rock the cars, they break the glass in the cars, they set the cars on fire. So if it were me and I had a car in the garage that I could go out the side and get in my car and then just, run them down to get away, I'd probably go out the back door and figure out how I can get over the fence and away from my home. And that's what I would do. And I wouldn't take to the street with firearms unless I felt that it was absolutely necessary to do that. And like I said, be aware what your gun laws are because I feel like the one thing that they are trying to push is one side into the other to create this kind of conflict and chaos and when guns are going to be start being used, that it will be the perfect excuse to commandeer all handguns and weaponry. So be careful out there, folks. And for God's sake, familiarize yourself with how to put out a gasoline fire. The other thing is you can have bags of sand that you can cut the bag open and throw the sand onto the gas fire to try to smother it. If it is just, burning and the carpet's on fire and the fire is moving towards you or it's gone up the wall, your sofa's on fire, get out of the house. Don't play hero. Don't try to save your house. Save your life and save your family's life. And that's all I have to say. And God bless us and may He watch over us and keep us all safe. And may we all use common sense and try to keep a cool head even though you keep it on a swivel. And as always, I love you.